Hi and welcome back to the program. I've created a new file called list.comprehension.py, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Let's create a list, which I'm going to call my list, and it's going to have the values from 0 to 4. 5 values. List comprehension is a way to build lists. So create lists programmatically. For example, an equal list to my list would be x for x in range 5. So this is a bit of a weird piece of syntax. And for non-Python programmers, this is really completely new. This is nowhere else other than Python, and maybe a couple other languages as well. What this does is, it does a for loop, really. It does for x in range 5, and then what it's going to do is, that's going to iterate over range 5. Range 5 is a list that says 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. So that's what range 5 is. So we're going to iterate over it. X is going to become the first element. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put x inside a list. And then we're going to move on to the next element, which is 1, and we're going to put 1 inside the list. Then we're going to put 2 in the list, 3 in the list, 4 in the list. So we're putting x into the list for each of the elements in range 5. And we enclose everything with a square bracket to tell Python that we're putting this in a list. Now, you'll say, instead of doing x for x in range 5, why don't you just do range 5, and that's going to be the same thing? And yes, it is. It's going to be the same thing. But this is a way of building a list. If we do range 5, then that's going to give us essentially a list. It's not really going to give us a list, but it's going to essentially give us a list. But what we can do with list comprehension is we can build a list that is slightly more complicated. So for example, multiply list can be x times 3 for x in range 5. Now, this allows us to put x multiplied by 3, where x is at first 0, and then it is 1, and then it is 2, and so on. So what do you think would happen when we run this program here? Python 3.5 list comprehension. What do you think is going to get printed out? Some sort of error? Or do you think a list is going to get printed out? And if so, what is going to be in that list? Well, let's find out. What is in that list is each of the elements of range 5, but multiplied by 3. So we get 0, 3, 6, 9, and 12 instead of 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Something else that I also wanted to show you in this video is the percent symbol. So for example, 8% 3. Do you know what percent is? It's present in many programming languages, and if you have experience programming with any other language, then you may know what percent is. But if you don't, then that's fine. And we get 2 back. So where does this 2 come from? It is the result of 8 divided by 3. 8 divided by 3 is 2. But the 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. So where's the other 2? The remainder. And there you have your answer. That's the 2. So when you divide 8 by 3, 8 by 3 gives you 6 remainder 2. And it is that 2 that is the modulus. So 8 modulus 3 equal 2, which is the remainder. So this percent symbol is called the modulus, and it calculates the remainder of a division. And you're probably wondering, so why the hell do I care about that? Well, you may care, for example, if you wanted to see if a number was odd or even. You can print 9 modulus 2, and that will tell you if 9 is odd or even. Any number modulus 2 will be even if the result is 0. So for example, 4 modulus 2 is 0 because 4 is even. 5 modulus 2 is 1 because 5 is odd. So as you can see, 9 modulus 2 gives you 1 because 9 is odd. So how could we get a list of even numbers? This is even more complicated, not something that we'd looked at before, but nevertheless, we're going to introduce it, and we're going to say n for n in range 10. And as you know, this is going to give us a list of numbers ranging from 0 to 9, in the same way that x for x in range 5 gave us the numbers from 0 to 4. But with list comprehension, we can include something else at the end, which is if n modulus 2 is 0. And then we're going to print that. Now we're going to comment this out, and we can print this out now. So what do you think is going to come out of this? Do you think it is going to be a list of 0, 2, 4, 6, 8? Is it going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Is it going to be something like 0, false, 2, false, 4, false? The first guess was correct. You get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Because only those numbers match this if statement there. So if n modulus 2 is 0, then we put the n in the list. And if not, then we don't put it in. Another couple of things that we may want to do with a list comprehension, for example. People you know, maybe Rolf, maybe Space John, maybe Anna, maybe Greg, all in capitals. And if we ask the user if they know them, they're going to need to put Rolf with a capital R, a space in front of John, Anna all in lowercase, Greg all in uppercase. Unless we do normalized people, we could create a new variable called normalized people and say person.strip.lower for person in people you know. So what this is going to do is going to strip the white space, such as from John, and it's going to turn them all to lowercase, such as Anna. It's going to make them all lowercase. And then we're going to print normalized people. I'm going to comment this line out, just so we don't get that out as well. And as you can see, we now get a list of normalized representations where they're all lowercase and they all don't have white space. So this may be one of the reasons you might want to use a list comprehension. If we go back to our exercise before, the if statement exercise, now we can change this to use a list comprehension instead of this for loop, which is a bit longer. You want to pause the video and give that a go? Use a list comprehension to simplify this code, and you can simplify it quite substantially if you do it smartly. Pause the video and give that a go, and then I will do it here for you. Okay, hopefully you managed that. And the first thing that we can do is we can say people without spaces is person strip for person in people list. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a new list where the element is going to be the person in lowercase, the person without white space for each of the people in there. However, we can also take it a step further and copy people.split and put it there. And then we can remove that too. So we can now say people without spaces is the person without white space for each of the persons in people.split. So this, remember, gets evaluated first, and we get a list of people. And then we iterate over that list, getting the person without white space for each. We could go even further if we wanted, although I would not recommend doing this. And then we could do this. This is really bad, by the way. Don't do this, but this is some sort of anti-pattern that I have to show you anyway. And then we could delete that. So as you can see, this is looking uglier and uglier as time passes. And there is always a trade-off between lines of code. The fewer lines, the better, really, but as long as they are as readable as possible. Here we've lost readability because we've got really just a lot of code in one line. Atom tells you that at 80 characters, that's what this line means, 80 characters long, you should really stop. And here we've probably got around 110. So maybe we don't want all this code to be in one line because it's not so readable anymore. But just to take it full circle, we could also do this and have the entire method in one line if we wanted. And then, of course, we could cut that and put it in here. If we wanted, we could get rid of that method entirely, and so on. But as you can see, it just doesn't really look as good. It gets a lot more confusing very quickly. Always split things into methods and make them readable so that, like that. So that you can then come back a few weeks or a few months later down the line and really easily understand what's going on. You've got a variable people, which probably is going to hold people. Then you've got a list of people, which is probably going to hold a list of people. And you know that a list is just a collection of elements. And then you're removing the spaces. You don't even need to look at this bit of code here, because people without spaces already tells you what values are in that list. And this should be your aim with code. And certainly is our aim when we work professionally as software developers, to make code readable and easy to work with. Because if you don't, it just takes a really, really long time to do anything when you come back a few weeks or a few months later and you want to improve things. So that was just a bit of an example showing what you can do, but not really what you should do. So keep that in mind moving forwards. Make your code readable, make your code easy to look at, and you will feel that it is a lot easier to do everything. So without further ado, thanks for listening there, and I'll see you in the very next video.